the most infamous unsolved murders in American history. After the spread of the COVID-19 epidemic, there was an increase in violent crime throughout the United States. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the homicide rate across the country increased by 30% in the year 2020, reaching its highest level since 1995. This increase was driven mostly by a new record for the number of murders committed with firearms. The fact that overall fewer murders are being solved is much more distressing than the increase in the number of killings. According to figures provided by the FBI, the murder clearance rate, often known as the proportion of killings for which police report making an arrest, has been steadily decreasing over the past several decades. Some of them are as follows. Number 10. The assassination of Andrew and Abby Borden. The deadly bludgeoning of the Bordens has been the topic of popular interest for a longer period than any other murder in the history of the United States. It is almost certain that Lizzie Andrew Borden was responsible for the deaths of her wealthy father and stepmother, and that she did so with the handle of an axe, maybe with the assistance of a maid. But the court decided that the evidence against her was circumstantial, and so she was allowed to spend the rest of her life shunned by the members of her community. The murder captivated the attention of the public at the time it occurred and continues to do so in popular culture, most notably as the subject of the film Lizzie, which was released in 2018. Number 9. The murders were committed with an axe in Villisca. On the evening of June 9, one of the most heinous and unsolved mass homicides in the history of the United States occurred in the town of Villisca, Iowa. A man, his wife, and 6 of their children, ranging in age from 5 to 12, were all killed with an axe in an incident that came to be known as the Villisca Axe Murders. Investigations into the crime, which has not been solved to this day, lasted for almost a decade and led to the establishment of the State Investigation Agency in Iowa. A traveling preacher named Lynn George Jacqueline Kelly, who had a history of mental illness, was arrested and accused, but the jury could not reach a verdict, which resulted in Kelly's acquittal. Number 8. The kidnapping of 10 people in the state of Vermont. A disproportionately high number of unexplained disappearances have been reported in the forested region surrounding Glastonbury Mountain in the southwest corner of Vermont. Between the years 1945 and 1950, there were 5 missing people, including a woman who was 53 years old and whose body was eventually found, as well as others whose remains were never found. Joe Citro, a writer and folklorist, gave the region where the disappearances occurred the name the Bennington Triangle in 1992. He also observed that some people believe the disappearances are merely a coincidental cluster of vanishings, but that they could also include instances of intentional wrongdoing. Despite what some local folklore may suggest, extraterrestrial entities such as UFOs or Bigfoot are probably not involved. Number 7. The whereabouts of Judge Joseph F. Crater are unknown. On the evening of August 6, the Justice of the New York Supreme Court, who was 41 years old, was last seen leaving a steakhouse in Midtown Manhattan on his way to see a play on Broadway. He has not been seen since. It is almost certain that Crater had enemies because he served as an arbitrator of justice during the Prohibition era in a major metropolis in the United States. Nonetheless, neither his body nor any suspects were ever found. After his high-profile disappearance, for a while, the phrase "pulling a crater" was used to refer to someone who abruptly left a social gathering. This was because of the way his disappearance was publicized. Number 6. The kidnapping of 5 little children. On the evening of Christmas Eve, a house in Fayetteville, West Virginia, caught fire, and only 4 of the 9 children who lived there were able to escape the blaze. It is a mystery what happened to the other 5 children, none of whose remains have ever been located. Nonetheless, there was speculation that the children had been kidnapped. 20 years after the fire, the mother of the children received a photo in the mail of a man labeled Louis Sauter, one of the 5 missing children who were 9 years old at the time of the fire. Some witnesses said they later saw the children alive, and 20 years after the fire, some witnesses said they later saw the children alive. The local fire chief stated at the time that the fire burned hot enough to cremate the children. This information is provided for your consideration. Number 5. The assassination of the actress Elizabeth Short. The gruesome murder and dismemberment of a 22-year-old aspiring actress in Los Angeles were centered on Short's loose reputation, as well as her history of underage drinking and the way she dressed, as is the case in several cases involving women who are victims of male violence in today's society. After her death, Short became known as the Black Dahlia due to the rumor that she favored wearing dresses made of translucent black fabric. The name was also a reference to the film Blue Dahlia, which was released in 1946 and was about the murder of an unfaithful wife. The investigation was never able to produce a suspect, and it was subsequently closed. Number 4. The murder of Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. On June 20th, a gangster who played an important role in the development of the Las Vegas Strip was killed in a shooting in Beverly Hills. It is often thought that Meyer Lansky, the boss of the mob, ordered the killing of Siegel, because Siegel was using an excessive amount of Lansky's money to expand the Flamingo Hotel on the Strip. In 2014, the widow of the deceased truck driver Matthew Moose Panza alleged that her late husband murdered Siegel over a love affair that Moose was having with the wife of Siegel's best friend and business partner, but the case has not been solved to this day. Number 3. The assassination of Barbara and Patricia Grimes. 1 month after the Chicago sisters, ages 13 and 15, were reported missing, their bodies were discovered on the side of a country road. The initial emphasis of the investigation was on a local drifter, although he was never legally charged with any crime. To give the story more traction, journalists used the fact that the sisters had gone to see the freshly released Elvis Presley film, Love Me Tender, which they exploited in a manner that may be termed a type of clickbait media from the 1950s. This superficial connection to Elvis led to irrational speculation that the females either had secret lovers, or that they ran away to Presley's hometown of Memphis in the hopes of meeting the rock and roll sensation. People lost interest, and the investigation was eventually closed as a result. It was similar to when a trend on TikTok went viral. Number 2. A breakout from the penal institution of Alcatraz. The notorious island prison located a little more than a mile off the coast of San Francisco was closed down in 1963 because of concerns over its high operating costs. The Rock, as it was affectionately referred to by both prisoners and guards, is currently administered by the National Park Service. For close to 30 years, it housed inmates. Some of them were notorious gangsters like Al Capone and George Machine Gun Kelly. Among its other famous inmates were the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, as well as Frank Morris, who, in 1962, carried out an elaborate escape plan using 3 papier-mâché heads to make it appear as though they were sleeping while scurrying through ventilation ducts. This allowed them to escape from prison. Number 1. Murder of a well-known television personality. Dorothy Kilgallen was the woman. The official death certificate for Kilgallen, which was issued in New York City, states that the co-host of the popular game show What's My Line passed away as a result of a lethal combination of alcohol and barbiturates, but it also states that the circumstances surrounding his passing are undetermined. Nonetheless, after her passing, there was much conjecture about the circumstances surrounding her death. Was there a possibility of accidental overdose? Was it suicide? Was it a murder in disguise, as some people have speculated? A call that was made to 911 around the time of her passing claimed that Kilgallen had been murdered, which added fuel to the fire of rumors. The investigation did not result in the identification of a suspect or a resolution to the case. What do you think about this video? Do let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.